This is True Crime Out Loud.
I'm your host, B.
And I'm your host, Jen.
And this week's case takes us to Baltimore, Maryland, more specifically the Cherry Hill neighborhood, located in the southern part of Baltimore, but closer to the downtown area. Cherry Hill is the location of Baltimore's largest public housing complex, along with other low-income apartments. There are only 4 roads that lead into and out of Cherry Hill, which sits on the Patapsco River. The population in the Cherry Hill neighborhood is around 8,500, and that population grows each year, although the city of Baltimore's population is declining overall. It is a predominantly African American community, with 95% of its occupants being African American, and most homes in the Cherry Hill neighborhood are headed by females, 72% in fact. 40% of the households in Cherry Hill live below the national poverty level.
That location is important because the subject we're going to talk about this week is Akia Eggleston, and she lived in Cherry Hill. Now, in May of 2017, which is when this case took place, Akia was 22 years old. Akia grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. She was raised by her mother and her stepfather. Akia's mother died in 2012 of cancer, and Akia stayed with her stepfather, Sean Wilkinson. So technically he's her stepfather, but most of the time in the media you see him called her father, and he is the one who speaks out about this case as often as possible. Sean was married to Akia's mom for about 10 years before her death. So Sean had been the father figure of Akia for a very long time, since she was young. Now, Akia is described as little in stature, but big in personality. And when I say little in stature, Akia was only 4'11" and 100 pounds. At the time this case took place, Akia was 8 months pregnant. So she would have been a little bit heavier, about 120 pounds, due to her pregnancy. So after Akia's mother died, she was still a teenager, and as any teenager who lost their mother, she began to act different, and her family says that she did some acting out, but nothing very big. And a lot of times when we do cases, this is not something that we put out there, but we try to contact family members, not to get information, but just to let them know we're doing a case on their loved one, and let them know that it comes from our heart and why we do this. Sometimes people get back to me. Most of the time they don't, but I have let them know so that they know this is out there. But Sean, Akia's father, actually stepfather, as I said, but Sean did get back to me, and he is aware of this podcast, and I'm going to give you some information that I got from him towards the end of this podcast. Like I said, Akia lived in the Cherry Hill neighborhood of Baltimore, and she was pregnant, but she also had a 2-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. Her and the father of that 2-year-old shared custody, and the little girl would go to her dad's every other weekend. Now, this took place in May of 2017, and Akia was due to deliver her baby boy in June of 2017. She was having a difficult pregnancy. The baby was breech, and she was supposed to be on bed rest until the time for her scheduled cesarean section.
Now, on Sunday, May 7th, 2017, Akia had her gender reveal baby shower planned for that day in Baltimore. She was excited about this and had worked really hard to plan the event, and actually put a $900 deposit down on a venue for the event. Her family and friends showed up for the event, where Akia was going to announce she was having a baby boy. But Akia didn't show up. Her family and friends knew something was wrong after they discussed why Akia would not show up. And then they realized, after they all kind of got together and started, hey, when did you hear from her? They all realized that no one had heard from her in 4 days. The last date that anyone had contact with Akia was May 3rd, and so they immediately reported her missing to the Baltimore Police Department.
So I want to go over the investigation that took place. The police first go to Akia's apartment and discover that almost all of her personal belongings are gone, except for her bed and her dresser. Even all of her clothing items were gone. So, I mean, it looked as if somebody was moving out or had moved out. But Akia did have a female roommate who also had a child, so they speak to the roommate. Well, the roommate tells them that Akia was planning to move out and expected to be out by May 10th at the latest. But we really don't know what information the roommate was able to provide to the police, because this is still an ongoing investigation as of May 2021. And they're not going to reveal everything they know. But we do know that Akia had told her roommate she was planning to move in with the baby's father. The police also know that due to Akia's condition, she could not have possibly moved all of her furniture and belongings by herself. So they want to talk to whoever helped her move all of her things, but they can't find anybody who helped her move. They look for other people who might know anything, and they find another friend who has information. Now, this friend says on May 3rd, she took Akia to the bank for Akia to get some money. Well, the police are able to locate surveillance footage of Akia. She went to Royal Farms where she took money from an ATM, and then she goes to a bank where she goes inside, and the footage shows her in the bank alone. She doesn't look distressed or disheveled. She gives a cashier's check to the teller, and she receives cash. And it's reported that she went to another bank in South Baltimore and said she was waiting on a check to come in. All the police will say about this is that checks were coming from various people in various places, and we don't know much more than that. They do know that when she went to the bank, she withdrew over $500, which was significant for Akia. The last surveillance footage is of Akia in the Inner Harbor area of Baltimore, and that is also the last ping on her cell phone. The bank where she was last seen in her phone ping was only about 3 miles from her home. Now, this friend that took her said she dropped Akia back off at her apartment around 2 or 3, and this was after she finished driving her around for errands. The police say the friend provided very good information and gave them details and has never been suspected in any foul play as far as Akia's disappearance. The police try to reach out to people in her apartment complex, but it is a very tight-lipped community where people mind their own business and don't want to get involved in other people's matters. Now, Cherry Hill, like we said, it is a public housing complex. It's not considered a really bad area, but it also doesn't have the greatest reputation. You see a lot of times in complexes, especially public housing complexes, people just do not want to provide information. They don't want to get involved. Now, Akia's apartment in Cherry Hill was on the end of the building right next to the dumpsters. She could pull her vehicle up right near her back door, which is where the police feel she would have had to bring out large items when she was moving out or someone was moving her out. And this back door is in the view of all the neighbors. So they know somebody saw something. Well, the police check, and there are cameras at the apartment complex. But, as we have talked about before, it's not uncommon for there to be an issue with camera systems or a particular angle of the camera. And that was the case here. The camera that would have shown Akia's apartment and the goings and comings there was not working properly.
Yeah, and that's a common thing for camera systems. Like we've mentioned in some previous podcasts, oftentimes you have camera systems that aren't maintained very well and they won't be functioning at all, or the camera has sustained some type of maybe wind damage or something like that, and so now it's not pointing where it's supposed to, and you end up with a picture of the side of the building or something because the camera's not focused where it should be. And unfortunately, in venues where the cameras are not monitored 24/7. It's like, we'll check on it if there's a problem. We'll review footage if there's a problem. If your camera system isn't monitored 24 hours a day, sometimes it can take weeks, months, years to find out that the camera system isn't functioning properly.
Yeah, you don't know it's not working until you need it.
Sure, and unfortunately, that's when you find out that it's not working, right? When you haven't got something that you needed.
So Akia does not have a drug abuse background, and she was not a drinker. The police have interviewed over 100 people in this case. They've executed over a dozen search warrants and subpoenas. They have used dogs and divers in numerous searches, but still nothing. Now, according to the Oxygen Network, in October of 2017, now this is 6 months after Akia went missing in May of 2017, her family and friends were outside of Akia's apartment and they were having a prayer and a vigil. As they were cleaning up, a friend spotted a bank card underneath bushes near the front door. So the friend goes to retrieve that bank card, and lo and behold, it belonged to Akia. The family said it appeared to be unweathered, and the Baltimore police had previously searched that area. The police have not confirmed if it appeared unweathered or not. I mean, it could have been there because sometimes in searches, especially when you're doing searches of a larger area, sometimes things are missed. I mean, that does happen. But if it appeared there after Akia went missing, that's even more unusual.
I think it's probably more likely that it was there and they just missed it.
I would like to think so, but again, we don't know. We don't have any confirmation on this. Now, since May 3rd of 2017, there was no activity on Akia's social media, none on her cell phone, and no bank withdrawals with that bank card.
Now, Akia's grandmother said that she last spoke to her on May 3rd, and police confirmed that this was the last telephone conversation that Akia had because there was no phone activity after May 3rd. Akia, like most younger people, is active on social media every day and has no activity after May 3rd. Her family said that she didn't mention to them that she was moving in with the father of her baby and that they didn't really believe that. However, one friend was able to provide text messages between herself and Akia where Akia discloses to her friend, and her friend's name is Cece, that she was excited about moving in with the baby's father. This text came in on May 3rd at about 5 p.m. Akia texted Cece that she was trying to move out by May 10th and had gotten the keys to the new place that same day. She also revealed to Cece that she and the father of her baby had been living together for a while, but it was kind of on the hush-hush because she didn't need anyone in her business. She said if he decided to leave, that she would still be able to keep the house that they were in. Cece said that she never talked about arguing with the father of the baby, but did have some issues with females from his past and some current other females. The one thing that the family was sure of is that Akia would not had just walked away and left her daughter. So that kind of points to the father of Akia's baby. I mean, the investigating officers and I'm sure the family members and everybody else are going to want to talk to this guy. His name has not been released publicly, and he has not been publicly named as a suspect. Her family didn't know his identity either because Akia did not tell them, and they didn't push her to tell them his identity. After she went missing, the family learned his identity, and it was a childhood friend of Sean Wilkinson's, who's Akia's father or stepfather, but we'll refer to him as her father. That's what most of the news articles are saying. Now, Sean had no idea that his friend had become involved with his stepdaughter. The man was at least 10 years, if not more, older than Akia, and Sean was really surprised when he found out this information. As I said, the father of her baby has not been named as a suspect, but the family has also not spoken to him. Sean said he was told not to contact him, and there's been no communication between them. Baltimore Police Department has not shared what information they got from the father of Akia's baby, but I'm sure they talked to him. There are several reports from different sources that this home they were going to share together either does not exist or he was not actually planning on moving in with Akia.
So there's more to the story.
Sure.
We just don't know what that more is.
So, for everything that we don't know, we do know some things. If something happened to Akia inside her apartment, there were no signs of a struggle. But she's very petite and 8 months pregnant, so physically it wouldn't be difficult for someone to overpower her. As Jen mentioned, the dumpsters are located right beside her apartment, and they could have had a wealth of evidence, including her property or possibly even her body or the body of her unborn child. But due to the delay in the reporting of her missing, the dumpster could have been emptied and all of the evidence taken with it. Remember, the family didn't realize that she was missing until they all showed up at the gender reveal party. And that's when they kind of put their stories together and figure out that not only is she not at the gender reveal, they haven't talked to her in 4 days. So the dumpster very well could have been emptied in that time. There have been cases where women were murdered for their unborn babies. We know that that's a thing. We also know that most of the time when somebody is involuntarily missing or possibly murdered, it is a result of someone that they know. Police say that they have dozens of persons of interest in this case, but no focus on a single individual.
So as far as what to do at this point, I mean, we have given you all the information we have. What the police need is any bit of information on what someone might have seen on May 3rd or 4th or 5th or 6th up until the 7th involving Akia. I mean, anything. Even events prior to this date could lead to something. Anything in the area of Cherry Hill neighborhood or her apartment complex that seemed abnormal. We have a lot of listeners in the Baltimore area, and we just hope that we can reach out and somebody knows just a little bit of something, because sometimes it's that very minute thing that leads to opening a case back up and bringing a cold case back hot again. The police really want to talk to whoever helped her move. This person could provide some invaluable information, like where are her things? Where was she going? And like I said, we have a lot of listeners in the Baltimore area or Maryland or the surrounding states. I mean, did somebody suddenly show up with a African-American baby boy that was kind of unexplainable? Any information about Akia and her unborn baby boy is needed. The police, what they don't need is the public's theories. Oh, I think this happened, or I think this happened. Everybody can come up with their own theory, but the police need information. Like I said, even if it's something tiny. Like I said in the beginning, I had reached out to Sean Wilkinson, and I wanted to read you part of the message I got from him. And he said, "Thank you for keeping Akia's name alive in the realm of social media. I want people to understand the magnitude of this case, and maybe it will touch the heart of someone. Without the public's help, her disappearance will not be solved. There is still a reward both from the FBI for $25,000 and Baltimore police for $2,500. Her family has not forgotten her and continue to press the police as often as they will take our calls. We all love Akia, and it's unfortunate that we have become part of a group that has unending sleep over her and her son being missing."
So let's recap what we know about Akia. As of May 2021, she would be 26 years old. And the last time she was seen, she was 4'11", 100 pounds, as we mentioned, an African-American female with black hair and brown eyes. She has a tattoo of cherries on her left shoulder blade and a tattoo of a building block with the name Emory on her upper left arm. She was last seen wearing a green shirt, black jacket with gray sleeves, black and white yoga pants, and black sneakers. And as Jen mentioned, there is an active $25,000 reward through the FBI for information that leads to locating her.
And we will have several pictures of Akia, the last footage of her on our website. And if you're watching YouTube, it's going to pop up.
Well, That's it for this week. We hope you enjoyed this week's case, and as always, we'll see you next week. As always, you can reach us by email at truecrimeoutloud@gmail.com, on Facebook and Instagram at True Crime Out Loud. Out Loud is 2 words, not one. On Twitter at TC Out Loud, or on our website at truecrimeoutloud.com.
Photos, links, and sources for this podcast can be found on our website at www.truecrimeoutloud.com.